I'm going to finish this video. This is the 28th. And by the way, yesterday, the 27th of December, was Lana Dempsey, this horrible psychopath that killed her twins. And I was kidnapped and brought to Moulton, Alabama in 41 and put in that family. And I call it a pigsty. And someone asked me what a pigsty was. I think they were more or less telling me to put it up here in case there's people that don't know. I was trying to tell the horror, the dirt, the filth, the abuse that went on there. So I was kidnapped from my parents, loving parents, and Buckingham Palace is who my father is and what they did to him, and who my mother is, Claudia Ruth O'Keefe, sister to artist Georgia O'Keefe. My father never married Wallace Simpson. They used a double. They used lookalikes back then, and that's who married Wallace Simpson. So I was born in 39, kidnapped in 41, and brought to Moulton, Alabama, in the pigsty. And here's what the pigsty consisted of. I'm going to try to make it quick, because I've put it all up on video before. There's a whole bunch of them the last almost 3 years. But it's people's reaction to it. It's almost like their hands are clean. They're Americans, so they didn't live back then, so they forget that all the laws have been broken right in front of them. And they've helped do it to me over the years. It's like I'm British. They forget my mother was an American, but you know, right now I don't even want to say that. What they did to her, and my father, and my country, and me and my kids that were born here. They're not Americans. They're English. They're British. I was brought here. I'm a hostage. I've never been anything else. Anyway, I want to go back to what a pigsty is. I was dropped off there in 41 and given to that woman. I can remember the two people that had me, two men, that handed me to her, and they had a camera, because they were poor. Dirt poor doesn't explain it, but they were horrible people. Well, they had the woman killed her two twins born out of wedlock, Peggy Carl, and that's the name I still have to use. They've got Carl listed as dead and questionable. He was just buried. They killed him. The family did. She did. Threw Peggy to the pigs. They ate her. And then I'm brought there. The only thing I know is Cortland Air Base was built just a few miles from there during the war. And the Kennedys, the old Kennedy was ambassador, appointed by Roosevelt, and the Illuminati kidnapped me, the Freemasons, the Kennedys, my own uncle, illegal George VI, and Elizabeth is illegal, and she's part of the Illuminati. So is Hillary Clinton, and all the presidents, with the exception, as far as I know, of Jimmy Carter wasn't. So, really, I trying to tell what the place was like, and you really can't in a short video. They dropped me off there. They took a picture of me with that woman, and I remember I had blonde curly hair, cute little baby, and they had a picture of my father where I'd been christened. It was a photograph painted. It was a photograph taken with me in his arms being christened. Well, the photograph is a huge one, painting, is a painting, and it disappeared over time. But anyway, I'm not going to try to describe the other things. I will say this: the old man raped two of his daughters repeatedly and repeatedly, and I don't know if the others were raped. But the son, Matthew, James Matthew, the only boy in the family, there were 8 in that family, and one was a boy. He was a master sergeant in the Army and retired, and I can remember him coming in when I was little, back from the Army, I believe, and he screamed, "But you fed her to the pigs." He was talking about later. Well, I couldn't remember about being kidnapped. I did later remember some of it. So I didn't know what he was talking about at the time. So the family covered up. They were illegitimate. And back then, that was a horrible, like the kid was the criminal, you know. So they stole my identity, and I lived that life growing up. Now, I wanted to put what a pigsty is. If anybody's ever been on a farm that's not well kept and they just feed them anything, I'm going to give you just a couple of things, and this is leaving out the abuse. Like one day when I was little, we all had to sleep in the same room, a couple of rooms, cold, wind that came through it. You had to sleep. I remember somehow they got those blankets that are army blankets that if they're next to you, you scratch and itch and you can't sleep. And people slept together, the family did, and to keep warm and just for the hell of it, I guess, excuse me. But the abuse and everything was awful. It was a kitchen, if you call it a kitchen, with a wood stove. Had a slop bucket where they dumped, if you had food, okay, food, what was food? It was dumped in there, and the grandmother, who you would call the grandmother, would stand there. It's right by the table where you eat. It's one of those long, like a picnic table would be. She would stand there and pee right in front of you. Use it, and then they take it out and feed it to the pigs. They didn't have a toilet. They didn't even have Sears and Roebuck padlock. At night, you would have to go out and you had to use the chimney. You'd have to use the toilet. That was your chimney. You'd step in it. You'd have to wipe yourself with your fingers, or if you were lucky, you had leaves. It was a horrible thing. And your nose, the same thing. You had nothing to wipe your nose with. Lucky to have shoes to put on. And there's horror in it all the time, how the snow almost froze. You had to walk from the school bus, like, I've forgotten, half a mile, and I can remember the snow drifts and my legs freezing and getting off the bus, and it was awful. But it's the way they treated me. Scared to death. The old man, the old grandpa, I can remember one day I stayed away from him as much as I could. He would come in one door and I would go out the other. And because I knew to a degree, well, it's one how he killed animals. But later I knew he raped two of his children repeatedly, his girls. But I can remember going through, and you had to sleep in the same room. And I had to go back. Well, it was just the living room and the kitchen and an old bedroom. Living room served as a bedroom too. And he had, I guess he'd been sick, and he had spit up. It was awful, the phlegm and all that. And I remember he had overturned the big pot that he was using to spit, the spittoon, if you want to call it that. And I slid in it and fell, and it was all over me, in my hair and everything. And they had wells when you were lucky and could go out and get water out of the well. So and you got the milk from the cow. You couldn't process it, didn't even have a refrigerator or icebox at that time to keep it in. But the horror also, you can't really describe it all, but I'm going to put this in here. I can remember when I was small, they put the chickens, the little baby chickens, underneath this table in the kitchen where the wood stove was and where we ate. Right up over it, we're sitting there, and these little chickens are all underneath to keep them warm, and they did have something underneath, I believe, to catch the droppings, but they had to keep them there, I guess, to keep them alive and from freezing. But you're eating, and you don't have anything to eat but fatback. You're lucky to have the milk from the cow, and the biscuits, if you had the flour, was made with water most of the time. So there was really nothing to eat until spring came, and you could get a few apples, and they did plant vegetables. So you had vegetables through the summer. So it was horrible living. But the abuse is what was so terrific. And then later when they brought someone there, supposedly supposed to be Lina's baby, so I thought he was a half-brother. And I loved him dearly, and guess what his name was? They named him Philip, as in Philip meant. It's the word association and all this that you get into that I worked for the district attorney in Huntsville, Alabama, and